I think you had started well in the Ministry of Mining. And I confirm because we went with you to Tharaka Nithi, and while there you mentioned Kitui and West Pokot and other counties. And you mentioned that investors are actually coming to invest in the mining sector in the country. I hope you've not lost the address book, because now it does appear that they may have to pass through you as they come to invest. I'll make it to EPZ. The EPZs are created purely to ensure that we exploit our local raw materials for purposes of export. But we are aware that the raw materials that are used in most of these EPZ industries are actually imported. They are brought into the country, they process them, and they then export. And we are told part of that is simple jeans worn by our youngsters in the country. Can you kindly confirm how you would work with, especially the Ministry of Agriculture, to ensure that those crops that are supposed to spur investment in the country, like cotton, sunflower, canola, and others, are revived, and we are able to start producing raw materials which would go into EPZ, as a result of which we would be able to export our own produce?
Owen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to just ask one question. You know, when I joined university to do masters, there was this professor who must have been doing some work on AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunities Act. And he made me believe, every lecture he would just talk about AGOA. And he made me believe that this was a panacea to industrialization, to manufacturing, and to economic growth and the GDP of this country. If you look at the AGOA, the way it is established, it has actually, for a large extent, provided jobs for young people and all that. But this act is actually coming to an end in 2025. 2025, that's when AGOA expires. I have fear myself about it because I know the process and what AGOA is and the negotiations. How are you going to ensure that this AGOA treaty, especially for Kenya, is extended so that we can continue to benefit from it, and that the people who have invested heavily in manufacturing, in the industries that are supported by AGOA, do not lose their investments, and the young people do not lose their jobs, and the country does not lose on the revenue from AGOA? In short, what are your plans about AGOA, its expiration, and going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee Salim Mvurya. Historically, Kenya was a preferred destination for foreign direct investments. In fact, major multinationals are operating in Kenya and their distribution and manufacturing networks. But however, you have seen that they have left this country in droves as a result of punitive erratic tax regime. Sometimes it's cheaper to produce elsewhere and just send to Kenya and then distribute from here. Corruption by state officers, and this is in immigration, in customs, in standards, in physical planning, in environment, even sometimes at the county, like a case in point is a Tatu City in Kiambu. And then also the issue of poor infrastructure and energy and transport. What do you want to do so that you can return Kenya to its lost glory and have those multinationals come back, because then we'll be able to boost the issue of employment of our youth. And there's a question that had been sent to the committee, though it wasn't submitted, not in the form of an affidavit as required, but it was a question that I think you need to also answer, because an issue of integrity. These people are saying that there have been allegations, accusations, and criticism leveled against you on the matters of corruption with respect to misappropriation of county funds when you served as a governor. There is no details. They are just asking, what is your view on these allegations, and how will you build public trust and demonstrate that you are capable of dealing with stopping graft in that ministry? Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, can I give?
Yes, Mule.
Thank you, Chair. The nominee, Honorable Mvurya. As you are aware, that Kenya has invested a lot of funds and resources at Konza City for the last almost 10 years. And as a nominee for investment, trade, and industry, to help the government and the young generation to create jobs, what are your views? What is your vision for Konza City to be realized as quickly as possible to create the most needed jobs for the young generation in this country?
The short one, Salim, we can take Razo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Because of time, I'll ask two questions. Honorable Mvurya, you were governor in Kwale, and then you were a cabinet secretary. For those of us in parliament, I think a lot of us, we feel that you governors who came to the central government still believe you are managers in counties as opposed to workers in the executive. Maybe I want you to really comment on that. My first question is on, because of time, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. It is on the blue economy and mining. It is estimated that this is $1 billion industry, if properly looked at, or a lot of effort is put into it in mining, in the blue economy of fishing. But at the moment, we are only able to raise even less than 1% of the GDP. Is it that we are underinvesting, particularly in that ministry, or we do not have the necessary human resource? Or maybe because we don't know that that particular industrial resource exists, particularly in excavation of minerals, in the blue economy.
Those nominee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
There are 5 questions. Murugara, Owen, Robert, Mule, and Raso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to begin with the 2 questions that have been posed by Honorable Raso. It is true I served as governor for 10 years in Kwale County and transited to be CS. So I want to confirm that I don't think I'm in the county. I hold the national executive in high esteem, and I act within the mandate at the national level. So, and I want to speak also for some of my colleagues who have served together in cabinet.
Speak for yourself.
Because he said, you governors. You know, I want to confirm that that transition has happened, and it is now a national responsibility.
In any case, it was a comment. It was not a question.
Oh, I thought it was
it
was a question.
Yes.
The other thing about now the multi-billion sector in mining and blue economy, it is true it is a multi-billion sector. However, it is not a sector you go in and you get the multi-billion. You have to invest. And the first investment, for example, in mining is you have to invest in data. If you expect to reap revenues then you need first of all to invest in data. And that is why it is critical to mention to this House that exploration going forward, government should invest a lot in exploration. So that when you now have discovered coltan, the government is the one saying we have coltan, it has this economic value. Then now you move to investment. But when you have minerals as part of occurrences, you cannot reap the billions. And I give you an example, Mheshimiwa. The little actions that we took in the ministry to just reform licensing and the basic data. Right now, the investments in mining this year will be 221 billion. The investments I mentioned earlier, there's one in Kajiado, clinkerization, 60 billion. So if you combine, you get 221. But it is a sector you have to invest first. Invest in licensing, invest in mapping, because you don't expect an investor to come and do prospecting. Then the government is the one reaping the billions. You need to put some money for that.
On a point of order, Speaker.
Secondly,
on a point of order, Speaker, just
Yes.
on that point.
yeah.
Because, Honorable Speaker, some of us have been here for some time. And I believe that's why probably Honorable Raso is asking that question. Because data is available, CS. We spent not less than, if I remember, not less than 9 or 11 billion facilitating the National Intelligence Service to do a geophysical survey of all our mineral deposits. Are you then telling the country that this data is not available to the government or to the ministry? I know that was in the last regime, but government operates in perpetuity. And therefore, if that data, and we spend public resources on it, and I say that because I was the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee when we allocated the first 5 billion shillings for that geophysical survey. That money was under the Ministry of Mining. It was moved to the National Intelligence Service with the justification or pretext that it was very sensitive data. Are you telling us now that that data that we are told was sensitive is not available at the ministry or with government? It disappeared with the other regime.
Okay.
And could that be the reason why there are people who settled on mineral deposits somewhere in, you know where?
I may not answer.
In Transmara.
I may not answer on the settlements, Mr. Speaker. I may not answer the settlements. But what I want to say is that that geo survey gave us what we call mineral occurrences, and there are 970 across the country. Mineral occurrences are indications. Like now, if you fly the plane in Tharaka, for example, they will show you, some basic information on iron ore, on lithium, and something like that. Once you do the occurrences, you need to come back and do a process we call ground truthing. Ground truthing now is the actual drilling of saying that in this area there are some minerals, coltan in Nachola, for example, in Samburu. Then ground truthing, you go back and now reconfirm. And now ascertain, is this of economic value or is something that is just for superficial? So that is the process that requires another investment. The good thing is that before I left, we have done 24 counties, and I think the technical team is reviewing data. So once you have that information, that is specific. You can now tell an investor, in Kenya, we have coltan in Darawe, in Alale, in West Pokot, of this value. Now that is the kind of information, Mheshimiwa, that we need to invest in. The second thing, the question also had blue economy. It is the same way with blue economy also. It is multi-billion, but it is not but multi-billion on arrival. it is multi-billion on your initial investment. For example, if you go to the Indian Ocean, there's a process that has to be done. You know, you need to do stock taking, stock taking of the fish in the Indian Ocean, so that when you are negotiating also with investors, have an idea of what is there. The Indian Ocean and Lake Victoria are highly occupied also by settlements, especially Indian Ocean, you have beaches and whatever. You need also to do marine spatial plan so that you can identify areas where you can put small pots. You can identify areas where you can put different investments. That is an investment you need to put initially before you begin now to reap the multi-billion. But I want to confirm that as a country, we are now on the right trajectory. That will be achieved with time. Now I go to the other question. The other question by Mheshimiwa Mule about Konza Technopolis. This is really a gem for young people because this is a city which is going to host the digital ideas for our country. And in terms of management, the Minister of ICT is leading this special economic zone. Just like any other economic zones, the challenge is the infrastructure, the horizontal infrastructure. Already there has been discussion with the government of South Korea, and they have committed to help us in putting the infrastructure in Konza. So once the infrastructure is put in place, then we will have a good environment.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, so that I can help the CS nominee, already the horizontal infrastructure in Konza City is done. What is being required right now is to pull investors to come and put up the factories. And what I want to hear from you, what plan do you have and incentive government need to give so that you can pull the investors to Konza City to create the jobs? Kenya government has already invested, and we have visited Konza City not twice, not thrice. The horizontal investment is done. What you are speaking about, Korea government has already committed to put up the technical institution in the city. What are you going to do for the new investors?
Mule says Konza Technopolis falls under the ICT ministry, and the investment and all the plans is to make it Kenya's equivalent of the Silicon Valley. So it is not investment to manufacture clothes or shoes or those ordinary manufacturing and trade wares that will fall under him. That's what I understood him to say.
Chair, what?
Chairman.
Chairman, what I'm looking forward for is the intertwining of the two ministries. We know very well. Konza City, the lead ministry is the ICT, but you are coming to a ministry whereby investment, trade, and industry will be under your purview, whereby government has already created the environment. And in your previous response, you say that the land and the infrastructure is required. Already there is already infrastructure done by Kenya government. It's you to intertwine with the industry, ICT ministry, to bring us the investors and to create the trade and the industries within the Konza City to create jobs.
The Speaker, I thought Konza City is a parastatal on its own, under the Ministry of ICT. Yeah. If I got it wrong, yes. I got it right.
It is.
Yeah. And parastatals are semi-autonomous things that...
That's what I tried to tell the Honorable Mule, but he's asked the question. Let's see if Mvurya has the answer.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I think there's no contradiction between me and the Honorable Member.
Yes.
When the Minister of ICT is taking leadership,
Yes.
we will work together to ensure that we support them and we create the necessary synergies within government to advertise Konza City, to provide support through Kenyans and other institutions in my ministry to ensure that then it becomes a viable project. So there's no contradiction.
Okay.
We will work together.
Okay. Have you answered all? Robert Mbuis?
I haven't gone, I'm now going to his question actually. So I started from the recent. Now I'm coming up until. Yeah, I think Mheshimiwa Mbui had a number of issues. Some were comments, but I will try to speak to them. The allegations of misappropriation, Mr. Speaker, when I was governor, have not been brought to my attention. I have not heard from any government institution alleging misappropriation, whether it is EACC, whether it is DCI, whether it is the Auditor General, whether the control of budget. I am not privy to any allegations on my integrity.
And he also said so that there was no evidence to that.
But it's good to put the record straight. Yes. Secondly, there were issues that Mheshimiwa raised about the foreign direct investments. And part of what we will be focusing on, the special economic zones, the EPZ, is basically to inspire the foreign direct investment. Right now, I think we have Naivasha, which there are quite a number of investors who have now reported. Electric vehicle manufacturers are now in Naivasha. We are also doing Busia. Busia is ongoing. So in a nutshell, what I will do, I will provide leadership to ensure this enabling environment that the government has earmarked to inspire investments, I will make sure that they come to fruition. Of course, there will be other issues that we will deal with together with Parliament, issues of taxation, issues of incentives for ease of doing business, including making sure that when investors report to Kenya, we have minimum restrictions. There are some investors, when they come here, we tell them they have to do some local registration or those kind of things. But that we will deal with you as Parliament to ensure that we together create an enabling environment for foreign direct investment. Mheshimiwa Owen, I hear you about the issue of AGOA, and you know, not just your lecturer, but many Kenyans, you know, are used to AGOA, which is coming to an end in 2025. And the discussion on AGOA is two-front. One is political, and another one is economic. Political in the sense that currently there are elections in US. And in between, the Congress might not sit to discuss AGOA. However, as government, we've already made our position known as Kenya position, that our wish is AGOA to continue, and that has been put emphatically.
Didn't the government sign a trade agreement with the US, or is not yet signed?
On AGOA?
No, not on AGOA. AGOA is not just about Kenya, it's about Africa.
It's about Africa.
So you have to go cooperate with the rest of Africa.
Exactly. So I think the other issue, Mr. Chairman, that I wanted to bring on board is that we all know AGOA and the deadline. The government of Kenya, through the ministry, is also in discussion with the US government for the strategic investment partnership. That is ongoing. And part of what I will be taking over upon approval by this House is to ensure that you know, we discuss graduating, you know, this STIP into a market access arrangement and a comprehensive free trade agreement. Those are some of the things that I want to commit that we will be putting on the table. Once we succeed to have it as a comprehensive free trade agreement and market access, then we will have had a good transition, you know, from AGOA to this new arrangement. But it's still on the table. There's a meeting next month on STIP, and I'm sure these are some of the ideas that we'll be leading as Kenya. The other question by Mheshimiwa George Murungaru, on, I think there are a number of issues that he mentioned, some comments. It is true we went together to Tharaka. We actually flew together to Kithiori. We saw the iron ore, and there are many things. I want to assure you, Mheshimiwa, there's an investor who is now coming into that area. That's part of the handing over I will do, but also because I'm in investment, we will work with my colleague because he's going to be putting up a value addition point in that area and immediately employ between 500 to 1,000 Kenyans in that area. So that's about the mining. The issue of raw materials, Mr. Speaker, I want to commit that we are working with our colleagues in agriculture. We will work with our colleagues in agriculture to revive the raw material crops that can support local manufacturing. And one of these is cotton. Already within the ministry there are projects, Ginary. The Ministry of Agriculture is already providing cotton seeds in parts of the country. Mapping has been done. Engagement with county governments has already been done. And I commit to continue this conversation so that we can have raw materials for our local industries, but also for the EPZ and for export. Part of these raw materials also means sunflower, because the importation of edible oil is taking a lot of our budget, and it is the desire that we inspire local manufacturing so that edible oil can be value added here in the country. And instead of importing, we can also export to other places in Africa. I hope.
Sharia, yes, you have done all of them. Sharia.